I'm Bogdan Romanică, for those who don't know me, and I will be the host and the speaker in this webinar, the third webinar of the Moving Beyond Summit. And yeah, it's such an honor and such a privilege to be again for the third time. For those of you who are here the third time or the second time, welcome back. It's really great to see you being so constant with us. For those who are for the first time, yeah, feel very welcome as well. I'm the speaker, but I'm not the only one who is involved in this process, in what's going to happen today, because I have close to me two very good colleagues and friends, because we are doing this summit together. It's part of a project that is made through the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. And I don't know if I said my name, but I think I did. Bogdan Romanică, yes, from Romania. I'm in Cluj at the moment, a great city. You are all invited to visit. But I want to give the microphone to my friends, Bogdan and Eleni, also to say hi to you and introduce themselves.
Thank you very much, Bogdan. Welcome everyone. I'm Bogdan from Bulgaria, and I'm in Bulgaria now, and I'm extremely happy to see so many people again here. And yeah, let's have this meaningful time together. Thank you for joining us.
Hello from my side too, everyone. Welcome to the third webinar we have today. It's wonderful to see familiar and unfamiliar faces. And I was just thinking, God bless internet and Zoom, because in this way we can all connect from all across the world and be here today. I'm very excited. Let's see, let's enjoy.
Yeah. All right. For those who attended the last evening's webinar that was presented by Bogdan, you maybe lost me at one point towards the end of the webinar. So I hope this time my internet connection will go well till the end. We have some, good intentions behind this. But if not, and if strange things happen, we just need to accept what the situation is, and we will connect in different ways. Okay, so today's workshop, webinar, I'm still in the transition of face-to-face work, because I'm working with people, and I do workshops and programs, and I focus on human development in nature, and using nature environment, but also nature-based models of development. So for me, this is it's a workshop, and it's not a webinar, because my mindset is still in the face-to-face environment. So today's meeting is about, and it is called, having soul and nature in the centers of our lives. And I just want to, before getting deeper into the topic, maybe a few practical things. Probably you're already familiar, but there is a chat option. So please write your comments or questions, because towards the end of the webinar, we will gather and discuss some questions. So please write them over there. Yeah, and from time to time, I will check with you to see if you're still with me and if you can still hear me. The webinar will be recorded and will be available after few days after this summit, so you can go back to the information that will be shared today and in the other webinars, and to listen it again and again. Okay, good. So this event, so the webinar is based on a book and on a concept, the Ecocentric Developmental Wheel. And I have prepared a long presentation, many slides, because we Because we see that in this way the technology allow us to also use the visuals, so they can add more value to our presentation. So I will now make and do the share screen, and then we will start. So just a few seconds to do this. Okay. Mhm. Good. All right. Can you see the screen? All good? Great. So, having soul and nature in the center of our lives. I have to tell you that it will be an intense presentation with lots of information. You may get lost from time to time with the information, with the slides, but don't worry about this. If it's happening, don't worry. As we told you, you'll have the recording, so you can return to this. And moving on, I want to tell you that this presentation, this model, is based on this book, on nature and the human soul. It's a book written by the American psychologist and wilderness guide Bill Plotkin. And I have this book with me here. This is the book, and as you can see, it's really a thick book, 500 pages. And I will try to present you the essence of this book in 1 hour. So it's a struggle, but let's see what would be the result. Okay, so here we go. There are 3 dimensions that I want to tell you about, and that are in a way this model, this theory, these concepts that I will present you and tell you about are based on 3 dimensions. And maybe even before going to tell you about these dimensions, maybe just a disclaimer is that this is a content towards which I feel very connected, because I find it very useful in my profession, and I find it also very very well documented, very well very practical for human development. But it's a model, so take from this presentation what resonates with you. Don't take it as a ultimate truth or the only truth. It's just a model and some perspectives, so just take what you feel like taking. So moving on to the first slide. So there are 3 dimensions that are based or building this model of ecocentric development. The first is the spirit. And when we speak about the spirit in this approach, the spirit is defined as the single and eternal mystery that animates everything in the universe. And you can give any name you want. You can call it the divine, God, Allah, Buddha, the great mystery, the force behind everything that it is. So you can name it the way you want, but there is this spiritual dimension, this oneness. And when we speak about this dimension, we can call it the upper world. The second dimension is the ego. And the way we think of ego in this context is a person's everyday conscious self, the personality of the person. For example, in this moment, in this interaction, I am living, experiencing life from my ego, listening information, interacting with other people, being in front of a screen, and so on. So I'm in my ego, in my everyday consciousness. And this is the middle world. The third dimension is the soul. And Bill Plotkin has a unique, a particular way of understanding soul. And he calls soul as a thing's ultimate place in the world. So the place, the role of each thing in the web of life. It's not only about humans, but it's also about natural elements, animals and plants and also humans. So in this perspective, everything in the universe, everything on the earth is animate, has a soul. And more particular to about humans, the soul of a human is the psycho-ecological niche that we as humans are meant to occupy uh, in the great web of life. It can be defined also as the sacred image, or the genius, or the seed in each person. That we come in this life with a sacred image, a seed about our sacred destiny, or the deep structure of our psyche. And this is called the underworld. Okay? And these three are states of consciousness. For example, I can be in my ego dimension, in my ego consciousness, in this very moment. I'm speaking, I'm listening, I'm trying to present some ideas. But if in this, later on this table where I'm at, I will do a spiritual practice like praying or meditation, deep meditation, I can shift my consciousness through this practice and enter in a spiritual realm and get in touch with the spirit, with the divine, and I can have a spiritual experience. But if in the same place, I am doing a soul craft practice, it can be maybe symbolic artwork, or maybe a deep imagery process in which I go deep inside my psyche through my imagination. I can have an underworld experience, underworld shift of consciousness. So these three elements are somehow important in the structure of this model. Okay. Are you with me? Is it making sense, more or less? Okay, good. It may not make sense because maybe these concepts are quite abstract from time to time, but as I told you, just take what resonates with you. Okay. And let's see how these elements, these dimensions are present in our society, in our modern society. And we discussed in the first webinar, which took place Monday, that we live in a rather fragmented world, rather fragmented society, based on industrial needs, on consumerism, fast living, which is nowadays, affecting the environment. And let's have a look on how these three elements, and especially how soul is found and experienced in the modern society. And I found this drawing, and probably you are familiar with this kind of drawing that, we as humans, or most of us, experience this kind of journey in life. People are born, they go to school, and then after school they go find a job, and then make a family, and then life is over. So this kind of pattern, this standardized journey through life, it's quite common in most of people that live in the modern industrial society. And I don't know what is your experience, but I work with many people, or I see, or I interact, or I see my relatives, my family, that somehow people are going through school. The school is trying to conform or to give us some shapes that can serve the industrial system, let's say. Then after school, we start a job, and most often these jobs are very soulless, and people are struggling, and they do very often boring work, and they go into 9-to-5 jobs and so on, and then they get into a family, or they get a loan, and then they have children, and somehow life seems not very meaningful and deep. I don't know if you can connect with this, but Bill Plotkin is speaking more about this way of living, and he calls it the egocentric way of living. But in a way, here is where we are with the society. Of course, not everyone. Maybe some people go to more meaningful schools, nature-based schools. Maybe they have their own business and they make money from their passions. Maybe they have beautiful families living in nature. Of course, we have a wide area of people, but in a way, this may seem like the life journey of many people in the westernized society. Okay, and this brings the question what we can do and how can we move beyond this production line, this line of standardized living. How can we move beyond this and step into a life that has soul and nature at its center? This is what we are going to discuss today, how we can do this. And a very useful practice that can give some clues to this question and can give us closer to our soul is poetry, and more specifically soul poetry. So I want to read you a poem that from my perspective speaks a lot of important things about today's topics. Okay, and the poem, it's called What to Remember When Waking by David White. And yeah, you can take this poem in the way you want. Maybe you want to close your eyes and just feel the words. Maybe you want to look on the window and just to see the branches of the trees moving in the wind, or just look into the screen because the words are on the screen as well. So I will read now the poem, and yeah, then we'll see what will follow. So what to remember when waking. In that first hardly noticed moment in which you wake, coming back to this life from the other, more secret, movable, and frighteningly honest world where everything began, there is a small opening into the new day, which closes the moment you begin your plans. What you can plan is too small for you to live. What you can live wholeheartedly will make plans enough for the vitality hidden in your sleep. To be human is to become visible while carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. To remember the other world in this world is to live in your true inheritance. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You are not a troubled guest on this earth. You are not an accident amidst other accidents. You were invited from another and greater night than the one from which you have just emerged. Now, looking through the slanting light of the morning window towards the mountain presence of everything that can be, what urgency calls you to your one love? What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky? Is it waiting in the fertile sea, in the trees beyond the house, in the life you can imagine for yourself, in the open and lovely white page on the writing desk? So this is the poem. You can maybe take a few seconds just to feel the words. Maybe there are some words that touched you or some images that stayed with you. Just take few moments, few seconds to take this poem in. And I want to bring you a little bit back to some words here, to this paragraph, in order to connect even more the three dimensions that I spoke earlier about. So we see here that the first line is about what you can plan, it's too small for you to leave. And I see this line as speaking about the ego, my consciousness. What my consciousness, my ego, my strategic mind can plan, can generate, it's too small for me, just because my ego is limited. But then there is this part about carrying what is hidden as a gift to others. So for me, this part is speaking about my soul, this hidden element that wants to be carried as a gift to others. And my gift is unique, it's only my gift, and it's hidden inside of me. And then this line, to remember the other world in this world, speaks to me about the spirit, about the great world from which we all come into being in this world. So I see in these lines, in these words, the reflection of these three dimensions that I spoken earlier. And I just wanted to give you maybe new perspectives on this. Okay, good. Moving on, how do you feel? Still here? Still in this world? Or has your consciousness shifted and went upward or under? Okay, good. So, getting closer to the model, the ecocentric model of development, here it is. This is the wheel of ecocentric or soul-centric development. Don't be scared. It's a very complex drawing, many dimensions. We will go through each stage. We will take it slowly, step by step. So this is just to have the large picture, the overview. And as you can see, it is a model built on the four directions in nature: east, south, west, and north. And you are probably familiar from the yesterday's webinar. Bogdan told you about the four directions, four patterns in nature. So you can also go back to that part in the previous webinar, because Bill Plotkin is building on the same pattern. So before moving on, just a few considerations about the wheel. So the wheel that we will be discussing stage by stage, there are 8 stages going from east, south, west, north, and back to east, has a couple of elements. And they are a passage into the stage. There is a passage to enter in this stage. Each stage has a name. In each stage, the human being is embodying more intensively one archetype. And if you're not familiar with what an archetype is, we can think of an archetype as a universal pattern of human behavior and character. So it's something that every human being has. We are all embodying and sharing, and we have access to these archetypes. In each stage of life, there is a certain task that needs to be fulfilled or addressed. The human in a certain stage is offering a specific gift coming from this archetype. There is also a center of gravity. The life of a person in a specific stage is gravitating around certain elements. And there is also a passage out of this stage. Okay, so these are a few elements. And so this wheel is presenting the stage, the life journey, instead of a linear journey, as we saw in the first image 2 slides or 3 slides ago, is the circular life stage. Okay? Few more considerations about the wheel before going into each stage is that the wheel is bringing together nature and culture. The culture, the tasks that need to be addressed are both culturally related and nature related. It is not age-based, but is developmental, except the first 2 stages, which are in a way influenced by the age and by some certain, physiological, biological characteristics. But after puberty is more developmental and not age-based. Every stage is the best stage to be in. There's no better or worse. Being a child is not better than being an elder, or being a youth is not better or worse than being an adult. Every passage is in a way a crisis, a form of crisis. And no task can be fully addressed or completed in that stage. So it's somehow an endless work to be done. Good. Now we have the guidelines, the directions, and now we will go to each stage one by one. Good? All right. Okay, so let's get ready for the first passage. And if you want in this journey, you can imagine how a new person is being born in this very moment. And when we move the slide, is as if a new person came to life. And just enter in stage 1, early childhood, a stage called innocent in the nest. It's called the nest because it's the place where the child is living. And we can think of the animals, animals when they are babies, they live in the nest or in the den. So this is also where humans live, in a nest. The archetype is the innocent. And we can look at these images, and by looking at them, we can get a sense what the innocent archetype is. This energy of being in the present moment, as children are. A child in that stage from birth through around 4 years old knows only the present moment. He or she doesn't know about the past or the future, so they're innocent and they're present. The task and what needs to be done in this stage is for the caregivers to preserve the innocence and the formation of the healthy, intact, and cultural viable ego or consciousness of the child. The gift that this child is bringing in the family, in the community, is the gift of innocence and luminous presence. And I'm assuming that when you saw these images with these children, you probably felt a little bit, lighter and, they are so cute, they are so nice. So we already got the gift coming out. The center of gravity is the spirit. And the spirit is because the child is just arrived from this other world where everything began. So it's very close related to the spirit. And the children leave this stage around age 4 when they develop enough consciousness to be aware of their own person. As we can say, they're aware of their name. So they know that they are a separate being, different from their parents and other children. Okay, moving on, what needs to be addressed in this stage? And the parents and their caregivers are the ones who need to address the following things to cover the needs of the child by providing touch and play, proper nutrition, by living a soul-centric life. So the families, the parents, to know that this child is carrying a soul, some unique gift. It's also important not to force learning in this stage of life and just to allow the children to learn on their own pace and rhythm. It's important to set technology aside and to keep them far from technology until school years. It would be great to have no TV. It would be great to have a lifestyle that allows as much time as possible to spend with these children. And would be even better if these children would grow close to nature. So by following these principles, these ways of being, the child can develop this innocence and a healthy consciousness. Of course, no one is perfect. No parent can do perfectly. It's, no one can do this perfectly, but at least we can try to give the best that we can do. All right, moving on to the next stage. Let's say that this child has reached 4 years of age and is going through this passage to naming, becoming aware of the name that is carrying, and going in the second stage of life, middle childhood, a stage called the explorer in the garden. The child becomes an explorer. And if we think of children that are between 4 and before puberty, we know how much they love to ask questions, how much they love to play, to explore, to play with the bugs, to play with mud, with leaves, to just discover the world, to be explorers. And somehow the environment around them is becoming the garden where they get to discover on one side the natural world, and at the same time their place in it, and their place in their connected with their families and culture. The gift that a child is bringing in this stage is the wonder, to be in wonder. What is that? Why the birds do like this? Why is that? And why is that? Why is this and why is that? So, and this is a gift. It's a gift for the caregivers, for the parents, for the grandparents, just to, be around children with this gift. The center of gravity is shifting, is moving, and the life of the child is gravitating around the family and nature. And this stage is ending when puberty arrives, around 12, 13 years, depending on the biology, the physiology of each child. Something more about the tasks, because the tasks are really important in this model, in this ecocentric model, is that there are two dimensions for this task. One is to discover the enchantment of the natural world, to discover the wild nature, to discover the human body, the imagination, the emotions. So the outer nature and the human nature. So this is the natural dimension. And then there's the cultural dimension for the child to learn the social practices, values, knowledge, history, mythology, cosmology of one's family and culture, as becoming more fully member of the extended family and the village. How specifically this can be done is, these are few examples, like long walks in nature with parents, free play in nature, for the children to see, hear, touch natural elements, contact with wild animals in their natural environment, and not in the zoo. Don't bring children to the zoo. Intergenerational contact with relatives, to hear stories from elders, from grandparents, and so on. So these are all equally important to develop and to achieve these tasks. Okay, good. And just a short check-in. Is it making more sense now? Do you see the connections with the stages, with the elements of the stage? Okay, good, good. If you have questions, just write them on your notebook and later on write them in the chat so we will have time to discuss them. Okay, guess what is happening now? The child has reached 12, 13 years old. A big crisis, puberty. And we know what's happening. Big changes, physical changes, mental, emotional changes. People, children transform a lot. And it is, in a way, a period. It's a crisis for them, for their families, for their teachers, and so on. And through this passage, the person, the human, is entering in stage 3, early adolescence, a stage called the thespian at the oasis. So a little clarification about the oasis and the thespian. We can see the thespian. This is a not very popular word. It's coming from Greek, ancient Greek, and it means in a way actor, actress. So in this stage, the person is in a way embodying the archetype of the thespian, of the actor that is trying different roles, that is trying different costumes. And he's doing this in a symbolic oasis. And we can think of oasis as this place in the desert where many people coming from many places are just meeting in the oasis. And the oasis is like a melting pot where information is changed, ideas, people get to know each other, and so on. So a person in this stage is like an actor in an oasis, trying different roles to see what is their role, what is their authentic way of being. Because the task in this stage is to create a secure and authentic social self, to individuate socially. And we know how this stage is. We've been there. We listen to rock music, to rap music. We try long hair, black hair, green hair. We had this kind of friends or that kind of friends, and and people are trying different ways of being until they form their authentic self. And when they form an authentic enough and secure enough self, they receive somehow a confirmation from life, not from a certain person, but this is more symbolically speaking. They receive a confirmation that they are authentic enough. And you can move into the next stage. Okay, but speaking a little bit more about the tasks, just to see how and what can be done in order for the person to really become authentic and secure. So there are a couple of subtasks that need to be addressed and covered by the person. So one of the things is to explore the values, to know what are your values as a person, what are the important things that matter. Also to learn skills of social authenticity, to be able to express yourself authentically in groups of people, in families, in different social environments. So if someone loves singing, maybe I will sing in front of the people because this is my, authentic way of being. It's also important to develop emotional skills, to manage emotions, to develop our emotional intelligence, to feel emotions, to integrate them. Also, the art of conflict resolution with inner and outer conflicts. Because being in the world, being in the oasis, various conflicts may appear. Having social status assigning skills, skills that will allow someone to take a social place, a position, and a role in the group and in the society. Skills with sex and sexual relationships, sustenance skills, to be able to take care of oneself. If the person is living in a nature-based culture, tribe, it means to be able to hunt and gather food. If it lives in a modern society, it means to have a job, to earn money in order to make a living and cover your basic needs. It's also important to study human nature reciprocity and ecological responsibility, to really be in connection with nature, and to work with the inner critics. Okay, few more words about the inner critics. The inner critic is another archetype that we all have. We all have a critical voice in our head that from time to time is whispering louder or not that loud. Don't behave like this. Don't do that. Don't sing. Don't dance so authentically. Stay in the corner. So this inner critic, it's a protective part that wants us to keep us, safe and far from, psychological, social embarrassment or different dangers. At one point, is keeping us away from our authenticity. So it's also very important to work with our inner critics in order to welcome them and integrate them, and in this way to manifest our lives more authentically. So these are a couple of things that need to happen in this stage, in the thespian, in the oasis. Good. Making sense? All right, good. It's helping also from time to time to have your confirmation, to feel that we are together in this. But here it's a trick. There's a trick here. Because so this the ideal soul-centric development, soul-centric way of life. But very often, most of us didn't experience this kind of parenting or education or lifestyle. So many people find themselves disconnected from nature. And we saw yesterday in what Bogdan told you about the nature deficit disorder. We become disconnected from, many people become disconnected from nature, from themselves, and from the world. And many people, after school or when they start the first jobs, they don't know who they are, what their passions and values are. Society doesn't support them either and tells them, okay, conform and just follow the social norms, go to the shopping mall, have this kind of job, and so on. So very often, most of the people, Bill Plotkin is saying that 70% of the people get stuck in stage 3 because they simply didn't develop this authentic, secure self, this authentic, secure self. So they get stuck in this adolescent mindset, consciousness, and they can move on and go on for many years ahead. And a good example is just to look to the leaders, the politicians that lead the world, how selfish and sometimes they behave as teenagers, and they are so disconnected from the earth. But there are good news. We can address the development deficits from earlier stages later in life. So it doesn't matter if we grew up in a block surrounded by other flats with concrete streets. We can develop ourselves later in life. And here are a couple of things. We can address the developmental tasks of stage 1 and develop our capacity for innocence and luminous presence later in life through meditation, contemplative practices, Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, solitude in nature, art, spending time with infants, with toddlers, and playing with them, entering social occasions with no expectations and curiosity. These are a couple of practices that will allow us to step into our innocent archetype and get in touch and cultivate our innocence and luminous presence. So, and in this way, we grow our capacities. Addressing developmental tasks of stage 2 later in life in order to develop our capacity for wonder and exploration. We can spend time with the pre-pubertal child in wild places. Go exploring with a 7-year-old child in a forest and wonder like he does. We can become a naturalist, visit nature, learn about nature elements, talk to a tree, climb a tree, become a gardener with emphasis on wonder and play. We can read a book on universe story, play childhood games, or do something new for the first time. And by doing this, we connect and manifest our explorer energy, explorer archetype. And of course, doing the tasks of stage 3 and so on, and then experiencing the eco-awakening moment. And I'm referring again to the yesterday's webinar in which Bogdan told you about eco-awakening more into details. And it's that moment when the person is becoming aware that he or she is member in the earth community, that the clouds and the stones and the trees are my friends, my cousins, my relatives. And this is also important to experience in stage 3 in order to move on into the next stage. And when enough authenticity is developed, and when I have enough resources to be secured in my life, there is another threshold, there's another passage that is calling me and inviting me. And here in this moment of life, this is the moment when soul, my soul, this unique gift, unique image, is getting more and more activated. Because soul, in a way, together with the spirit, with the great mystery, are guiding in a way, consciously or unconsciously, the being, the human, to manifest itself fully. So in the confirmation is the stage when soul and mystery are telling you have enough authenticity, you have enough, now it's time to move on into stage 4. Late adolescence, the wanderer in the cocoon. And now we are in a time that age doesn't matter. So people can be in this stage in their, around 18 or 19, or 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, depending on how much development they made until that point. Okay, so being in stage 4, it's not age-based or related. And when someone is stepping in this phase, it's again it's a deep shift is happening in the consciousness. The human, for example, he's doing his business, for example, a business that is coming out of his passions. And at one point, a strange feeling that this job, this work, it's not fulfilling anymore. It's not part of me anymore. Or the passions that I was manifesting are not relevant. And there's a strong call for something else, something deeper. It's because the wanderer is wakening up and the soul is coming more into first row. And the wanderer, what needs to to do in this phase is to leave home and especially to leave home the adolescent identity, all those social roles that he or she made until this moment, and to embark into an exploration of the mysteries of nature and psyche. And the person that is in this stage is offering the gift of mystery and darkness, asking deep questions like, who am I? What is my place on this earth? What this life means? Why did I go through all this? Why did this happen to me? So it's this, the soul, these questions come from our depths. And the center of gravity is the mysteries of soul and nature and the underworld. And the passage out of this stage is the soul initiation, when the person is understanding more about her own soul. Okay, does it make sense? Is it, because this is more abstract, this part is more mysterious. Okay, or maybe it's very obvious. Maybe you find yourself, all right, this is giving words to what I'm feeling for a few years already. Thanks God, someone put words to this. Okay, I just need to drink a little bit of water and then we move on. Okay, so more details about the tasks one needs to happen. So about leaving home, one dimension is to address the developmental deficits from earlier stages. We already mentioned about before, but this also needs to be done in this phase as well. To improve, hone our skills of physical, psychological, and social self-reliance, to be able to rely even more on ourselves, because we will embark in this new journey and we need to be, resourceful enough to do this. To relinquish attachment to the adolescent personality. Maybe it means to end up some relationships that no longer serve my depths, my soul. Maybe to quit a job. Maybe to move from this place, to sell a house, or to quit from some social clubs in which I was part of, because they no longer serve the new me that wants to emerge. Also, giving up addictions. Exploration of the sacred wound. This is a deep and bigger concept, but with few words, it's something that each of us is wounded in mysterious ways, in a specific way. So in this phase, I need to explore my wound and how I have been wounded, by life, by people around me, and so on. And to learn more about authenticity over acceptance. So this is about leaving home. And then the second dimension about exploring the mysteries of nature and psyche. It means to work with the soulcraft skills like dream work, the way of counsel, self-design ceremonies, dialogues, communication with the natural world, deep imagery, soul poetry, symbolic artwork, fasting, trekking, all these things and skills will allow me to explore this sacred image that I have received when I was born. And some practices that will cultivate a soulful relationship to life is the art of solitude, wandering in nature, shadow work, romance, mindfulness, developing the 4 dimensions of our wholeness, are the 4 dimensions that Bogdan told you about in yesterday's webinar, and a personal relationship with spirit. And doing all these things at one point, if the wanderer is guided by people who went through these processes, will find himself or herself like here, facing the universe, alone in the nature, asking the question, who am I, and how to live my life. And at one point in this journey, doing all these processes, the person will encounter the soul, and will discover some things about the unique way of being in the world, about the true place. And the soul speaks in the metaphors, in symbols. And here are some images that can give some clues about someone's souls. And for example, here, this is referring to Bill Plotkin's soul encounter. He's describing it in the book. He was somehow received the image of being a cocoon weaver, someone who's weaving cocoons of transformation. This is not a job, not a job description, but it's more a metaphor that you need to explore or to manifest. Someone might be, the one who is feeling the heart of the earth and the heart of the humans and opening the hearts of people. Someone may be one who is talking to the earth with the hands and speaking with the universe through the hair. Doesn't have to make sense to the ego, to our consciousness, but it's a metaphor that is very rich in symbols and energies. Okay, and when the person gathers enough details about her soul and is proactively decided, okay, I'm gonna follow this image and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna live my life with this image in my center, in the center of my life, is going through a passage that is called soul initiation. And the person is initiated by the soul and embodying in this way the soul in the culture. Therefore, entering in stage 5, early adulthood, a stage called the soul apprentice at the wellspring. And from this moment on, I will just briefly present you the four stages that are left, because the most relevant for our work are the first 4 stages. So I will just go briefly through the next stages. So in this stage, the person is bringing back with her the soul images and is learning delivery systems for embodying soul in culture, in the village where he or she belongs, and then also doing further explorations of the soul image. The gift that is bringing is visionary action, hope, and inspiration. And they are attracted by the cultural depths. Speaking more practically, Bill Plotkin, when he returned with this vision, he started learning how to be a vision quest guide. He learned how to weave cocoons of transformations. He developed a practice of psychotherapy that was coming from this image. He began learning how to make wilderness and nature-based programs. So this is what the person is doing in this life stage. When the person masters one or more delivery systems, which may take years, couple of good years, when the person is mastering, it's going through the induction passage and is going into the next stage, stage 6, late adulthood, called the artisan in the wild orchard. And in this stage, the person is becoming an artisan and is creating and implementing innovative delivery systems for soul. Basically, is learning, how to deliver his soul image in a unique way. And at the same time, is cultivating even more his wholeness, the four-dimensional self. The gift that is bringing are the seeds of cultural renaissance. And what he's giving is perceived as an art form. And I can use this book as an innovative delivery system that Bill Plotkin offered after, when he reached the stage, because this model is new, is never before seen, that he offered in an innovative way. But there are different examples. Maybe someone art form can be, a certain kind of music, or to create and develop a community, or to build a school, a unique, innovative school. So there can be many ways of doing this. Okay, and the passage out of this stage is crowning. Crowning is the moment, the peak moment of mastery, of service that the person is doing from his or her soul. And through the crowning is entering stage 7, early elderhood, and is becoming a master in the grove of elders. And for me, these two images speak so well about the role of a master in the grove of elders. Because a person in this stage has the task of caring for the soul of the more than human community. And also to care and mentor the people that are in the earlier stages. To preserve the innocence of the children and wandering, to guide thespians and wanderers in their process of becoming fully authentic and finding their souls, and supporting the adults to manifest themselves more fully. And through their actions, they are serving the soul of the more than human community, the soul, the ecosystem. And as they advance in age, at one point, they are called by the mystery to surrender. To surrender their soul mission, and to surrender even more and more their attachment from life. And in this way, they enter in stage 8, late elderhood, the stage in the mountain cave. And from this stage, in this place, their role is to tend the universe and to share wisdom, a wisdom that is coming from far away dimensions, from the universe, from the souls, from the earth intelligence. And they're sharing this wisdom and mentoring others in their journeys. And with the time, they also prepare for death. Death, which is the final threshold. So this is the last stage. And through this presentation, we went through all these 8 stages of ecocentric or soul-centric development. And we could see how life can look like if is having soul and nature as the center. What is really important is the ideal community is the community that has people from all these stages. Nowadays, we have in the modern industrial egocentric societies, we have a large majority of adolescents, of teenagers in bodies, in forms of adults. So it's really important to turn more towards soul and nature, and to look for the wisdom shared in these kind of models and practices in order to follow as much as we can a journey of soul and nature. Right, almost 1 hour of presentation. I hope you're still alive and still able to be focused. A few more slides just to bring a little bit more image and creativity. If you want to see the wheel with different forms and symbols, maybe a wheel that has more innocence in it. And I will now end my presentation with few lines, and then we can open the conversation for questions. So what I want to say is this question from the first poem. What shape waits in the seed of you to grow and spread its branches against a future sky? This is a question that I'm hoping you will take it and stay with it to see what waits in the seed of you. Thank you so much for listening, for taking notes, for being present. Wow, thank you. So let the more interactive part begin, and let's see if there are any questions. If you have questions, please write them. And I know Eleni will come and help me with the facilitation of this process.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Bogdan. Thank you so much for this rich explanation of the model of the ecocentric development. We already have some questions and we are waiting for more. Maybe we can start with this. So the first question is, how do we know at what stage we are in? How do we know at what stage we are?
Yeah, this is a very good question. And maybe before going into details, I just want to say that also Eleni and Ognan, they are also welcome to answer, because we are working together with this model and with this concept, and they are also very familiar with them. So just to let you know that if they feel like saying something, they are also very welcome and invited. So if you want to know more about the stage, you can buy the book. I don't necessarily want to promote it. I don't have any commission, but it will really help you with this. But something practical is just to think, where is your center of gravity? What are you interested in this moment? I assume that you are not in stage 1 or 2, because you passed puberty for sure, so you are not there. So just see what you are attracted to. Is it, you want to explore the world as a tourist, or you want to explore the world as a pilgrim? So as a tourist, for me, it's more as a thespian that is interested in society, in the people, and exploring himself and herself, or more as a pilgrim who's walking a journey, not to see the world and to discover cultures, but it's more about to discover himself through this process. And we developed some educational materials that you will receive after the summit. And in these materials are synthesized from this book, taken from this book, a couple of guidelines on how to self-evaluate yourself and to identify in which stage you are in. Okay. Oh. And Eleni and Ogi, at any time you feel like, just jump in.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we can go to the next question for now. unless Ogi wants to say something. No. All right. So the next question is, what if we have a deficit in the third stage, but stage 4 seems well accomplished? So it feels like third stage, there is a lack of, actually it is mentioned that there is lack of close and secure relationships, but stage 4 seems well accomplished. So what if this is the case?
Wow, they are very, deep and specific questions. And I'm really happy about this because I see from these questions, a very good understanding of this model. One thing that Bill Plotkin said in one of the trainings I was attending with him is that mystery and soul are giving to the human a broken paddle and a leaky boat, a boat that is leaking, and is saying now, okay, it's enough time. You have a life. You need to manifest your soul. You need to give your gifts. So it's very often the case that we are in maybe stage 4, and there are many or some tasks that were not addressed probably at all. So it's really common to have this, and it's normal. It's okay. We can be in stage 4, but in order to fully move on and to fully embody ourselves, it's really important to go back and to do some work for that task. It can be very specific tasks in stage 3. It can be specific tasks in stage 2. And if I don't work with those tasks, they will in a way hold me in my journey, and I cannot fully manifest myself because I need, in a way, the stages, they build on each other. So in order to be an explorer, a good explorer, I need to have the innocence in me. I need to have the gift and the capacity for innocence. In order to be authentic, I need to have innocence, to be light, and to just explore. And also the explorer, to explore myself, to explore my roles, to explore the world. In order to be a wanderer, I need all the other threes and so on. So they build on each other. Okay. I think, Ogi, you also want to say something.
One thing that I would like to address in relation to this question is one of the most important premises of the model. And it is that we are not living in ideal eco-soul-centric society. In fact, in modern world, we are living in egocentric society, which in its core, in its presence, somehow naturally creates this type of deficits. And that's why one of the main elements in today's presentation was how to address deficits in previous stages, in later stages in life. And this is one thing that every one of us needs to focus and to give efforts to, working on the task from the previous stages. And this is something that will enrich our present state and will help us in the future developments.
Thank you, Ogi. We have one more question, which is, how would you recommend to someone to find their authenticity? How would you recommend to someone to find their authenticity?
Yeah, it's again a very important question, because I think we are struggling so much with manifesting our authenticity. As Ogi said, we live in an egocentric society that wants everything from us except being ourselves. Because this is dangerous. If we are fully ourselves, the society will change completely. So it's really challenging to be authentic because we had to go through a childhood and through school years in which we had very often to conform to our parents, to conform to our teachers, to conform to the religious institutions, and later on to conform to what media is telling us to be and how to behave and what to buy. And this also this creates a condition in which authenticity is really hard to manifest. So I think a couple of important elements is, first of all, I want to be myself. I want to be authentic. It will be difficult. It will be challenging because this might mean to face the criticism, face to be different than the others. So I think it's really important. I choose to live my life, to be authentic. And some things that will contribute to this is, just to know who am I, what are my values, is, freedom, love, and justice, and to discover, to make clear that these are my values and I'm going to defend them, and this will make me authentic. To also discover what are my natural gifts and talents. Am I meant to be a musician or a farmer? And if these are my qualities, I will become a musician, and I will leave behind the voice of my parents that told me that don't do art because you will be poor. So I would just follow what is important for me. And all the other things is, to speak the truth. This is a very big way of being authentic. And this is a practice that I'm recommending you and encouraging you to speak the truth regardless of the situation, because this will make you so authentic and will give you courage to be yourself. And for example, I will give you a practical example because I'm working constantly on my authenticity. A while ago, maybe a few months or years ago, my parents were asking me, so what are you doing this evening? My normal answer would say, well, I'm doing an activity. And it's in a way, I'm just saying I have some work to do. But this evening I spoke with my parents before this webinar, and I decided to tell them I'm doing a webinar about ecocentrism. And we have people coming from so many countries, and I'm doing the presentation, and I feel really nervous. So this was a way of speaking the truth. So I'm inviting you just to speak the truth, and you become instantaneously authentic. Yeah, and I know that Ogi and Eleni, you are also working with authenticity. So if you have something to say, or yeah.
I will just add on what you said, Bogdan, a very, very practical way. I believe it is to sing. When we are singing, we are using our voice, and our voice is actually who we are. There is no other voice the same as our voice. So I would say, thank the inner critic. We have so many inner critics about our voice. So thank these inner critics and use your voice through song and experiment with this. This is a very practical way because I'm also in love with singing. Yeah, so that's from my side. More, join us also for tomorrow webinar. Mm-hmm. Ogi, do you feel like sharing something here? No. Bogdan? Oh, yes. I didn't get it. Yes, we are listening to you.
You can move forwards. I have nothing to add after this wide and very, very rich and deep explanation.
All right. Bogdan, would you like one more question or two more questions? I see Ogi's.
Two more questions. We have enough time.
I know. So maybe we can start with this. Was there ever an ideal ecocentric society, or are we longing to an existing reality? Was there ever an ideal ecocentric society, or are we longing for something that is actually not existing or has never existed?
Oh, again, I'm touched by the beauty of the questions and their depth. My perspective is that there's no perfect society, and there's no ideal society that can reach all the criteria. But my perspective is that there are natural societies and nature-based societies that live in rhythm with nature. And nature, we can't say that there's an ideal place in nature, or that nature is perfect. It's just nature. A big storm with thunders, it's not bad or good. It's just it is. Or gentle wind. It is. So I think we need to strive towards nature-based societies and cultures. And this model is building on the natural patterns of nature and the human nature. Because thousands of years ago, and not even so early, but in the nature-based cultures, these practices are common. They grow in the forest, in the nature environment. They are initiated and they are going through this stage 4 process when they are 15, 16, 17. And then they get in the contact with nature, with their soul, and then they bring it in the village and they become adults manifesting, their lives. Of course, there are always, pain. It's pain, suffering, happiness, joy, the whole spectrum of human experience. So as a summary, I would say that we should strive for nature-based societies, not for ideals or perfect societies. I don't know if this answers in a way, but this is what came through.
Mm-hmm. One more question then? Thank you, Bogdan.
I think Ogi, you want to say something? Yeah.
What I would like to add here is to emphasize, just for a while, to emphasize that this model is not made up. It's not taken from nothing. In fact, this model is created over the natural patterns, psychological and physical natural patterns that are coming from the nature. And in fact, this is the model that put in shape what people are inherited with. So what is in our genes from the evolution, where we are coming from. And this model is presenting how we can become in balance and harmony with our natural inheritance. And that's why the shortest version of the answer of this question is as closer to nature one culture is, most ecocentric it is. So we can see the cultures and societies living in Amazon, or in history many indigenous cultures, and we can definitely say that they were much closer to ecocentric ideal that we are now living.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ogi. Mm-hmm. All right. We have one more question, which is if working with this model, have you already considered if and how to cross it with the hero's journey model of Vogler? So working on this model, have you already considered if and how to cross it with the hero's journey model of Vogler?
Again, I need to say what a great question, and what a deep and to the point question. So someone is really into. I mean, probably you all are into this topic. Just a 1 minute 30-second answer. Bill is writing in a book about the hero's journey. And I know that hero's journey can be, smaller journeys repeated in different ways. But we can look at the hero's journey mainly connected with stage 4. So in stage 4, we hear this call to adventure, to enter, to leave the mundane world, to leave the world of the society, to leave it behind, and to enter and to go in the underworld. And the hero's journey has this health side that is under. So we need to go down and to discover that precious life lesson, that precious gift. And we need to struggle, to fight with the shadows, with the demons, to find mentors, guides. And then when we find the jewel or the gift, we are bringing it back home. So there are many similarities and at the same time also differences, because both models are so complex, and I'm sure that they feed and they support each other. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Ooh, what a webinar, what a session. I hope, yeah, it was what your soul needed. There are still a few more minutes, so don't leave yet, because I want to invite you to take 1 minute to write in your journal something, and then I will have something to close the event. So I'm just inviting you to write down, what are you taking out of this webinar, or what has touched you, or what do you feel in this moment that is calling you? That from this presentation, from this talk, from these questions, what do you feel it's calling you in this moment? So what you're taking out, what has touched you, what is calling you. Yeah, 1, 2 minutes. Okay, so we are getting to an end here. These questions for reflection can stay with you, and when we end this meeting, you can continue writing, continue journaling. Journaling is a very valuable practice. You heard about it also yesterday. So keep journaling. Yeah. Before having the final words, I will just invite Ogi and Eleni, if you feel like saying some final words, maybe also Eleni to speak something about tomorrow's webinar. Feel free.
Managing different things here, so I lose from time to time the screen or the button. All right, so thank you so much, Bogdan, once again for this very beautiful, insightful presentation. It was wonderful to have all of you here with us today to spend 1.5 and a bit more hour with us. Tomorrow, the same time, we are going to have another webinar, which is dedicated to remembering the wisdom of the heart and exploring positive psychology. And we are going to delve into what really makes us happy, not what makes us consume more, but what does make us really happy, as well as other things like positive emotions and their contribution into our life and our transformation and character virtues. But that's all for now. More about it tomorrow. And thank you from my side. Mm-hmm.
Thank you also from my side to being with us here and sharing this valuable time and meaningful time. And I want to use this moment also to share that all three of us are very active on local and international level, and we, as you are part of this webinar and we already have your emails, we will keep you updated about any kind of local or international activities that we are organizing and we are offering to people in our communities or in the frame of Erasmus Plus. So you will be invited to join different activities also in the nature. So I hope that you will have chance to experience this firsthand. Thank you very much for being with us.
Right, a few words also from my side. I really hope that what we are doing here, it's the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Because it's so important to be a community in these times, because we need to make the great turning together and we need to support each other. And the three of us, and I'm sure all of you are into this and committed and dedicated. So let's keep in touch and make this great turning great, someone said. Let's make the great turning great. Thank you for attending, for coming, for listening, for your questions. There are so many things that can be said, but I will let you with a poem. And it's a poem written by David White, one of our favorite poets. And it's only one part of a poem that is called Sweet Darkness. And may these words land on you well. And it goes like this. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. anything or anyone does not bring you alive is too small for you. So my invitation and final words is just to do as many things as possible that bring you and make you feel alive. Thank you so much. You're awesome. See you tomorrow. If not, enjoy the weekend. Be in nature in this weekend. Go out. Thank you. Have a good evening.